Connie is on a mission. His brother Nick is being tortured by a psychiatrist. Grandma picked a fight with him, so Nick threw a hot pan past her head, and now she's forced him to enroll in some horrible program. Connie just wants to escape to Virginia with his brother so they can buy a farm and enjoy walking around the woods in their own time. Just one problem. They need some money. It's no big deal. Connie has a foolproof plan to rob a bank for $65,000. He feels impervious with Nick by his side. Once they successfully pull off the bank heist with nothing but threatening handwritten notes and disguises that promote racial profiling, Connie tells Nick that he's incredible. The support of his brother is everything. They jump into the getaway car, and Connie rejoices at his triumph. He got away with it. Spoiler alert, Connie is a fucking idiot, and things just go downhill from here. Let's start off with the amount of money he was after. Looking at today's prices, it's conceivable that a little house in the Virginia countryside could have gone for less than $100K in the mid to late 20-teens, but bruv, you still need to consider living expenses. If you're going to commit a felony, might as well go big and get enough cash for the next 10 or 20 years. Oh, sorry. Got distracted by my side quest. So Connie's feeling good with cash in hand, when all of a sudden the bag explodes into a fog of red paint. Their driver gets sidelined, and the brothers sneak into a Pizza Hut to remove the guilt from their skin and clothes. They stash the money in the ceiling tiles and head out. On their way home, Nick gets spooked by a police officer, and they take off through a shopping center, where Connie manages to evade capture, but Nick gets overwhelmed by the physical and emotional stress of it all, and he crashes through a glass window. The police catch up and arrest him. Connie makes so many bad decisions throughout this story, but his dumbest call was recruiting his brother to be his accomplice. Nick is someone who's very open with his emotions. He's easy to read, not a great quality in a criminal. As they're leaving the bank with the stolen money, Nick's instinct is to start running versus Connie's slightly more measured, "Hey baby, be cool" attitude. This repeats when a policeman approaches them in the street, and Nick, unable to quell his anxiety, jolts. Nick is also pretty clumsy. He struggles with taking the mask off and trips over some big red thing in the shopping mall. Both Connie and the police officers are slightly thrown off by the automatic sliding door, but Nick is so overwhelmed at this point that he crashes through the static window. He also has some sensory issues. The mask really upsets him, and he says that his face is burning when the red paint explodes on them. Nick gets sent to prison, so Connie tries to post his bail with their recent windfall, which, according to the bondsman, ended up being a cool
$16,480.
all of which has been marked and therefore rendered garbage. The bondsman needs another $10,000 to get Nick out of prison. Connie has one other ally. He drops by his situationship's mother's apartment, and Lydia, who is happy to get dinner last minute, argues with her mother who so reviles Connie. Our delinquent retreats to Lydia's bedroom to chill with the dogs. On their way to dinner, Lydia starts in on vacationing, but Connie interrupts with a sob story. Nick was being abused by one of the therapists and violently defended himself. Now he's in prison. Bail's only a couple grand. Lydia reluctantly agrees to use her mom's credit card. It's only a temporary loan. Upon arrival, the bondsman states that bail is $10,000. Lydia looks perturbed, but Connie argues that $10,000 isn't that much different from $2,000, and the money will get returned once a judge rules in Nick's favor. Anyway, this is about Nick. Doesn't she want to help Nick? Again, Lydia agrees and swipes her mom's card, but it doesn't go through. As it turns out, a mother can predict when her daughter is about to make unwise decisions about money. Look, Connie is 100% using, manipulating, and gaslighting Lydia in this exchange. He does not give a fuck about her. And Lydia, for her part, does not give a fuck about Connie. She keeps returning to the subject of vacation.
What, and our trip? We'll go after?
Seriously, that's your response to what I just told you?
She definitely wants someone in her life, but she doesn't seem to value the mutual reciprocation that occurs in half-decent relationships. She also takes complete financial advantage of her mother. The fact that Lydia accepts a last-minute late-night dinner and monetary guilt-tripping from Connie suggests that she has low self-esteem. I clocked her as a narcissist. Not the evil, pompous kind, but one of those lonely, parasitic types. The bondsman finds out that Nick has been moved to Elmhurst, so Connie moves on. At the hospital, he plays it cool and manages to figure out which floor the pigs are on. He finds an officer guarding a room where a man with a busted-up face is sleeping. Connie waits until a cop withdraws from his post to go retrieve his brother and escape the hospital undetected. Thanks, public transit. A woman on the bus wishes him a healthy recovery, and Connie manipulates this goodwill into a place to crash for the night. He starts off asking for a phone call and works it from there. Grandma goes to bed, but her granddaughter, Crystal, is a night owl. She catches Connie refreshing his hair to Trash Blonde, and they bond over chicken nuggets in the kitchen. They then watch a presentation about how the American police are trying to justify their existence when a cop on the show directly and possibly unintentionally causes a woman to stab herself. Connie asks to change the channel,
You gotta change this. I don't want to see him justify this shit.
where his mugshot appears on the late night news. This is a man who is quick on his feet and has great instincts. He starts making out with a girl he knows to be 16, but it's all above board because she looks older. They move the action to Crystal's bedroom, but get interrupted when Connie hears screaming from upstairs. He discovers that the man he abducted was not, in fact, his brother, so Connie needs to find a way back to the hospital. He manages to convince Crystal to go on an early morning joyride. It was the hospital who fucked up the discharge, and brings along hospital man so as not to bring any attention to Grandma's house. As it turns out, absconding with a man in police custody might make it a little more difficult to return to the scene of the crime and grab the correct man who has an undisclosed location and is also very likely to be in police custody. Connie lies to Crystal about needing something from the White Castle across the street. And it's not like she's a little lamb who's lost in the woods. Her ex is a drug dealer, and Crystal is open to Connie's sexual advances.
Yo, where you going?
And no, underage people cannot equitably consent to sex with the elderly. That's not what I'm saying. But Crystal is open to a little bit of fun, a little bit of chaos. Her problem is that she miscalculates quite the amount of trouble some white guy will bring to her life. Connie and Crystal do connect on a genuine level. I mean, Connie lies and manipulates her, but he does talk to her in a convivial yet respectful fashion, and she reciprocates. And yeah, getting her trust is part of a manipulative contingency plan that Connie does end up exploiting.
I think something very important is happening, and it's deeply connected to my purpose. And I think that you are somehow connected to it as well. I mean, do you feel me at all? Do I just sound like a total faggot?
No, I feel you. I understand.
But after creating some chaos at a theme park that brings about the cops, Connie, in the guise of a security guard, tries to protect Crystal from the pigs. It doesn't work, and she still gets nabbed, but he feels bad that she becomes collateral damage. Well, not bad enough to turn himself in. So Hospital Man, he's pretty pissed. This incident is gonna fuck up his parole, so now he also needs to avoid the cops. Brev recounts a tale of acid, stolen Radio Shack money, and the resulting hidden treasures somewhere in Adventureland. Connie gets the bright idea to team up with a guy who almost certainly just woke up from a short-term coma, or at least a really rough concussion. They're gonna break into the theme park, find the money, and split it evenly. I feel like Connie missed the part about the money being from Radio Shack. It's Radio Shack. The last time I went into one of those was almost a decade ago to buy some electrical components and a soldering iron. Newsflash, gang, a pack of resistors is not a high-value item. This film was released in 2017, and I'm pretty sure that there were pre-modern internet memes about the flailing financial state of Radio Shack back in the 90s. Bro, there's no money at Radio Shack. Everyone knows it's in the Banana Shack. I know that this is going to come as a great shock, but Connie and his dipshit partner in crime do not find the money. They do find some leftover acid from Hospital Man's buddies, and Connie does both brutalize and frame the security guard when the police eventually show up. Now in possession of the man's wallet and keys, our two desperate criminals plan to hide out at the security guard's apartment. A terrifying hound awaits them, but Connie is good with dogs and settles Fido in a different room. These two geniuses wait for Hospital Man's BFF Khalif to show up, so they can negotiate the wholesale value of the acid. They turn on the tube, where Connie's face is plastered all over the morning news, and Hospital Man starts to ask questions. Connie gets defensive and yells at his shadow.
Look, losers like you are incapable of taking care of themselves. You're either leeching off mommy, or leeching off welfare, or living off the government in jail. That's you!
You don't know the first thing about me, bro.
What's to know? What's to know? You serve absolutely no function whatsoever. It's pathetic.
These two guys have pretty similar stories, in that a series of terrible decisions landed them in their current predicaments. Connie's yelling at himself here. He knows how much of a shit he is. At some stage, Khalif arrives, and Connie takes refuge with the dog. A failed negotiation ensues, and Connie flees so as not to get caught in Khalif's gunfire. His miraculously loyal canine pal restrains Hospital Man and enables him to flee the building. Desafortunadamente, the cops show up and we get a visual metaphor about the rat race of criminality. And Hospital Man, who is also in trouble and should really be in bed resting, he decides to climb out the window and try scaling the wall. And of course, he falls to his death. Connie does a bunch of despicable shit, and he does it for an increasingly insulting payout. Would you seriously go through all of that for like $15K? Here's the thing. Throughout the film, we get views of people's bad relationships with their families. Nick is yelling at his grandma on the prison phone line. Laura and her mom are constantly bickering, and at one point, Crystal's grandma berates her for staring at her phone. Incidentally, this is the actual reason I think Connie sort of cares about Crystal. He relates to her. Nick and Connie's parents are never mentioned, implying that their grandma raised them. And according to Nick, who I'm inclined to believe because his body literally rejects dishonesty, his grandma was being mean to him about food.
I was sitting there trying to eat, and she started yelling at me and pushing me and yet telling me I can't eat food.
That was your grandmother was saying that?
Yeah, and then she threw stuff at me and put
She threw
stuff on
things
me.
at you?
Yeah, and then I picked up the pan and I threw it at her.
I think we can safely assume that this was Grandma's parenting style throughout their childhoods, and Connie developed a bunch of coping mechanisms to deal with her that happened to coincide pretty well with the criminal skill set. Actually, there's that scene where Connie shows up to Laura's place, and she argues loudly with her mom. Connie so instinctively retreats to her room to chill with the dogs, implying he's spent his whole life with the inescapable stress of people screaming in the house, likely Grandma and Nick. His goal in all of this was to escape the chaos of his life and settle down somewhere quiet and peaceful with his brother. The hope springing from this very nice dream leads Connie to perform and justify some truly heinous shit. Deep down, and I mean way deep down, like in the core of the core of the core, Connie is not a bad person. There's an old woman at the hospital who asks for Jell-O, and Connie gives it to her. He also slurps down what remains in the cup, and between this and Crystal's chicken nuggets, Bruv doesn't look like he's getting 3 square meals a day. And again, though he's not willing to fall on his sword for her, Connie does make a small effort to protect Crystal from the cops.
Is this the one that was running around? Nah, it wasn't a girl, bro. I don't know what that is.
At the end of the day, Connie is willing to do anything and everything for his brother. When he absconds with Hospital Man, thinking it's Nick, Connie gives him his coat, even though it's freezing fucking cold outside. And when the cops eventually catch up to him, Connie takes full responsibility for the bank robbery so that at least Nick doesn't end up in prison. Well, in criminal prison. He still has to endure the hell that Grandma set out for him. According to the Wikipedia page for this movie, which cites an NPR article that I did not read, the Safdies chose to cast Benny as Nick because they didn't feel like someone with a developmental disability would have enough agency during the rougher action sequences. The Safdies started their film careers making documentaries, and as far as I'm aware, they generally cast real people in their projects. If there wasn't a safety concern about the actor playing Nick, they probably would have cast someone else in the role. The bigger concern here is how they treat Nick as a character. You think about something like Rain Man, where the film is about Tom Cruise learning to be a better person because Dusty Hoffman can count displaced toothpicks really quickly. Or that one Netflix show about the kid with autism because it's super important that we portray how the family is affected by their weird son/brother, not about that and how he exists as himself. Most of the media about people with disabilities is about how that disability affects the quote-unquote normal people surrounding it. And let's be real, this film is predominantly about Connie and how he's trying to make this dream happen for his brother, but both the opening and closing scenes of Good Time focus on Nick. They actively take his perspective. Nick never gets a label, and while Connie does treat his brother a little too gently to say that they have an equal peer relationship, he does just view Nick as his brother, not as a burden to be locked away.
Is that what you think you are?
What?
And there is some ambiguity about whether or not Nick is okay with and wants to be institutionalized. The reasons for him being there are definitely not fair. Grandma played the game with a stacked deck, and even though Nick himself says that he doesn't want to be institutionalized, Connie is a skilled manipulator. It's reasonable to suggest that he has at least some influence over his brother. Regardless, Nick is a guy with big emotions, and it is important for his and others' safety that he learns how to emotionally regulate. In this scene with Dr. What's-His-Face, Nick is at first unengaged with the therapizing, but when they hit on something real, Nick opens up in a big way. And of course, this is where Connie jumps in to kidnap his brother. The final shot of the film features Nick's cohort playing a game called Across the Room, where you cross the room if the stated topic applies to you. There are 2 ways to interpret this scene. Possibly more, but I only thought of 2. 1, Nick just plays this condescending game to placate his wardens. 2, Nick is reluctant to join in, but eventually does because, weirdly enough, that game is a non-verbal way to externalize his experiences without having to be super vulnerable. Maybe he feels safe expressing himself in this context, and maybe he's okay with that. I genuinely don't know, but it is nice that a character like Nick is given this level of depth and ambiguity for once. And let's not forget the social commentary. Connie is happy to use racial stereotyping when it suits his agenda, but you don't get the impression that on a personal, human level, he hates and is disgusted by black people. He's totally cool with taking advantage of them. He's an equal opportunity grifter. Connie doesn't want Crystal to go to prison, but he isn't invested enough to stop this overly aggressive white cop from grilling her about the unconscionable offense that is existing in a public space at night. Oh, and let's not forget Connie framing and almost doing an Ed Norton to the security guard. After getting caught by the pigs, Nick is placed in a tiny, overcrowded holding cell with a massively disproportionate number of non-white people. A fight breaks out, and we get to witness these guys experience the euphoric delight that is what I assume to be tear gas. I don't want to minimize that Connie and even Hospital Man and like most of the white characters, let's not minimize their trauma. They all have unenviable lives, and most of them are driven by desperation, but goddamn, do their shenanigans have to come at the direct and heavy cost to people of color in a system that is already so prejudiced against them? Anyway, feel free to make use of your manipulative skill set in the comments. Bye.
My brother doesn't have a jacket and he's freezing. Is there any way I can use your phone just for like 2 minutes?
That's okay, that's okay.
God bless you. God bless.